Buddies, good morning. This is 4:30 in the morning here in Hyderabad, and I am about to talk about a very unfortunate thing that happened on the Bangalore highway a few days ago. Now, this video is about my outlook, about my thought on the whole event. Now, many of my subscriber friends asked me to make a video like this where we all can discuss about this topic and make motorcycle riding a much safer thing to do. Now, for the people who don't know what happened, I would like to brief on this topic. Basically, few of our rider friends were riding on the Bangalore highway a few days ago, and one of the riders unfortunately ended up hitting a girl who was crossing the road. And when this happened, when this unfortunate thing happened, the villagers, all of them, hundreds of people got together and they started beating up the biker who was riding his motorcycle, and without even analyzing or looking into the fact of whose fault it is. So the villagers thrashed the biker, they started beating him up, they started breaking his motorcycle, and not just that, but they also stopped other riders who were on the same highway, and they beat up many other riders and broke their motorcycles, which is absolute hooliganism, taking the law into their hands and doing something which should never be done. Now, do I blame the villagers completely? Yes, and also no. So let us talk about this topic, that is point number one. Why did the villagers do something like this? Well, we have to understand that there is a huge misconception that has been going on about bikers since a long time. That is, when people look at us with all our fancy riding gear, expensive motorcycles, they look at us as spoiled young kids, spoiled brats. They don't understand that many of us have really worked hard and bought these motorcycles. They just think that we are idiots who are riding motorcycles in a fast manner on the road and we are a threat to them. That is what they think. They don't know, because they are not educated in a manner where they would understand more about motorcycles. So this is the only benefit of doubt that I give to the villagers. But what they did is an absolute no. They can never ever do something like that. Now, what can we do to avoid something like this? Now, well, it's easier said than done. Avoiding these kind of situations is extremely difficult, friends. Now, if I was in this situation, what would I do? The only way to avoid this situation is to ride slow. But how slow can we ride? As much as I love my country, I have to say this, that our road conditions are terrible. Even if once in a while we find a good highway where the road surface is good, but we still end up finding people who are going to walk on the street without looking, walk on the highway without looking left or right, and they are just going to cross the express highway with their almost eyes closed, and they are going to get themselves into trouble, and also the rider and also risk the rider's life. So in this situation, it's easier said than done that we should ride slow. Now, if you're on express highway, say you're going from Hyderabad to Bangalore, you would at least have to ride at 110 or 120 kilometers an hour, or at least about 100 odd kilometers an hour to reach from point A to point B in about 7 hours or 8 hours. But to avoid accidents like these, where you have no clue who is going to jump off the divider and get onto the highway, if you have to brake in time, then you cannot be riding more than 80 kilometers an hour, because that is the speed where, in case you see something ahead of you within the next 20, 30, 50 meters, you can brake on time. But if you're riding at 80 kilometers an hour, do you really think you can enjoy your ride on the highway and reach from point A to point B, it would take a really long time. So what can we do? What we can do is, now think this to be the highway, okay? This whole thing, express highway. Here in middle would be the divider, correct? So what people generally do is they don't look left, they don't look right. Even if they look, what they do is they cross one side of the road and they stand on the divider. When they stand on the divider, they get covered by the trees which are planted on the divider. Very often on the divider there are small trees, plants or flower pots. So a rider who is riding would not know that there is someone on the divider who is waiting to cross the express highway. And if the person waiting on the divider all of a sudden gets onto the express highway, it would be a shock for the rider seeing someone on the express highway, and also shock for the person to see a motorcycle on the left or the right side. All right. So very often what we all do is, when this is the highway and this is the divider, we ride very close to the divider, correct? Because that is the way it's supposed to be in general. Because fast moving motorcycles or cars should be riding on the right side of the road closer to the divider, so that slow moving vehicles can be on the left side. But if we are riding very close to the divider and someone jumps off the divider onto the express highway, we would have absolutely no time. Not just the express highway, even our streets. If we ride very close to the divider, we would have absolutely no time to react and we'll end up hitting the person. Probably that is what would have happened to this rider who was riding on the Bangalore highway. So what I generally do and what I would request you all to do is, if this is the divider and if this is the road, ride near and about the center line. Because if you're riding near and about the center line, you would have time to react and either move to the left or to the right, depending on if the person is coming from the right, from the divider, and jumps onto the highway. You can start braking and move on to the left. And if the person is coming from the left onto the highway, and if you're at the center line, you can start moving to the right and start braking. Start braking and then start moving to the right. So it would give you those vital additional extra seconds and also give you some more ground where you can slow down. So this is something very, very important that you can do. Now, point number 2, even after this, unfortunately, if you end up hitting the person who is trying to cross the road, or very often in villages, it's not just that you get into trouble if you end up hitting a human being, but if you end up hitting their cattle or their goat or their sheep, even then they get very angry at you, because you according to them you have killed something which gives them livelihood. If you kill their cow, they get, or buffalo, if you end up hitting their buffalo or cow, you would take away the livelihood of that farmer. So now we got to be very careful. Even if we are riding in the center near about the center line, we start braking and we end up hitting a human or end up hitting an animal which belongs to the villager. So then what we should do is, according to law, we have to stop there and ask for help or call for help, right? Because we cannot hit someone and go away. But in our situations, it is very, very dangerous to stay there. Yes, I would hate to say this, but very often, 99% times, the villagers will beat up the person who has ended up hitting the person who is trying to cross the road, or even the cattle that is trying to cross the road. So if I would have been in this situation, now I'm not advising anyone to do this, all right, but if I am in that situation and end up hitting a human or cattle, I would I would not stop right there and wait for villagers to hit me. I would continue my riding, or that is, in case my motorcycle is operational, then I would continue riding, go to the nearest police station and surrender myself. I would go to the police station and tell that this is what happened at the nearest village. I ended up hitting someone, and now let the law take its own course. Because if I wait there, the villagers will thrash me up, and I cannot let that happen. All right. So that is one situation. But what if after hitting something, the person or the cattle, if my motorcycle is non-operational, then I would say I would get off and run. I would run for my life. That is it. I'm serious. I would just escape somewhere, uh, and then I would do the same thing, that is go to the nearest police station and surrender myself. Because if you end up hitting someone, the villagers are anyways going to come to the uh, area where this has happened, and that person will be taken to the nearest hospital. So don't worry about you taking the person to the nearest hospital, because if you worry about that, these people will hit you up and they won't even take you to the nearest hospital. All right. So this is not an advice, but this is what I would do. Now, if in the third situation where I am riding my motorcycle and I did not hit anyone, but a similar situation can happen again where imagine that someone else has hit someone, all right, and the villagers have gathered a huge mob where they are thrashing the motorcycle of that person and beating that person up. Now don't try to be a hero, all right? Don't try to go into that mob with your motorcycle and try to move the villagers. No, villagers will have huge sticks with them. They will have weapons and all that, and you cannot help that rider. So what I suggest you to do is, whenever you're on a highway, that is the reason people ride in groups. Why they ride in groups is that they can help each other, but again, solo riding has its own charm, okay, and not always can we ride in groups. So in case you're riding and you see a huge mob there, the mob could be because of any reasons. Two villages could be kind of fighting in between themselves. Do you want to get into that mob, or anything? When you're on a highway, keep your eyes right ahead. Watch at least 200 to 300 meters ahead or a kilometer ahead. And if you see a mob, a huge gathering of people, stop as quickly and early as possible. Turn around and ask someone what is going on there. Get the proper information and take some other route, or wait till the mob cools down and they disperse. Don't put yourself into trouble, friends. All right. And now the fourth point or third point, I don't know, I forgot. But another point is that in case without your fault, now the villagers could be fighting among themselves, or the villagers could be thrashing up another biker, but you also ride into that mob, that group of people, and they start hitting your bike. What would you do? Don't try to be a hero. Don't try to, again, don't try to do what heroes do in the movies, what actors do in the movies, and try to hit the villagers. No, don't take the law into your hands. And even if you take the law into your hands, or if you try to be a hero by hitting the villagers, there are hundreds of people there and you're one. In the end, you will get into trouble. So what I suggest is that in case you drive into that mob, into that group of people, and if you realize that they are going to hit you up, leave your motorcycle there and run the other way around, take a bus or whatever, get yourself into a safe situation, call emergency police numbers. And remember, always, any express highway that you get onto, there'll always be an emergency number written. Make a note of that emergency number the moment you get onto the express highway or any highway. Call that number, inform them, and ask for help. All right. So, and any more ideas that you can think of, friends, do let me know in the comments, and we can together try to avoid these kind of situations. So I think that is it from my side. Don't go by advices of people. If they say you should carry a gun, you should carry a weapon with you, that's all bullshit, man. If there are hundreds of people coming to bash you up, what will you do with a gun? Will you shoot someone? That will be illegal. What will you do with a knife? What, you will start killing people? You can't do all of those things. You just have to save yourself, run away from that situation, or try to avoid that situation. So that is it, friends. It feels terrible, it feels sad of what happened to our fellow biking brothers. And thank you. I'll wait for your comments.